If you've been with me through these past 7 episodes, you've walked through some tender territory with me. We've explored the original wound, that place where we learned we weren't quite safe to be ourselves. We've mapped the protective patterns we build, those intricate defenses that once served us, but now keep us from the very connection we long for. And we've begun to understand what it means to stay close to the way you were made. But here's the part that few people talk about in the healing conversations. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do for yourself is to step back. Sometimes the most honest thing you can say is, I'm not strong enough for this right now. And that's not failure. That's wisdom. Welcome to the final episode of this season of Stay Close. I'm Sarah Brassard, and today we're going to talk about something that might just change everything. The framework you need when you say yes to healing, and the profound honesty required to know when you need to say, not yet. Let me take you back through where we've been together, because every step has been building toward this moment of understanding. In episode 1, we opened the door to the original wound, that first significant moment when you learned that being fully yourself wasn't safe. Maybe it was when your excitement was too much, or your sensitivity was criticized, or your natural way of being was somehow wrong. This wasn't about blame. It was about recognition. Episode 2 brought us to the protective patterns, those beautiful, creative ways your young self learned to navigate an unsafe world. The people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the emotional walls, the constant achieving. We honored these patterns because they kept us alive when we felt very small. By episode 3, we were exploring what it means to stay close to the way you were made. That essential self that existed before the world taught you to be different. Your natural rhythms, your authentic responses, your inherent way of processing and being in the world. Episode 4 and 5 took us deeper into recognizing the specific ways we disconnect from ourselves, the subtle and not so subtle ways we abandon our own experience to feel safe or acceptable to others. Episode 6 was about the courage it takes to stay close when the world pressures you to conform, to hurry up, to be different than who you are. Episode 7 was about the practice of returning and coming back to yourself again and again with gentleness and hopefully without judgment. But here's what we haven't fully addressed yet. What happens when you say yes to this healing work and find yourself completely overwhelmed by what comes up? There's a territory in healing work that rarely gets mapped. It's the space between recognition and integration. It's what happens after you've identified your patterns, understood your original wound, and committed to staying close to the way you were made. And then you realize you have no framework for what's going to emerge. Because here's the truth: when you start dismantling the patterns, those protective patterns that have kept you functioning for years, decades even, there's going to be a lot of emotional material that surfaces. Grief that's been buried, anger that was never safe to feel, fear that you've been running from, sadness so deep it feels oceanic. And if you don't have a framework for this, if you don't know that this is normal, that this is part of the process, that this doesn't mean you're broken, you can end up feeling like you're drowning in your own healing journey. I've watched people, beautiful, brave people, who start this work of staying close to themselves and then get overwhelmed by the intensity of what emerges. They think they're doing something wrong. They think they should be stronger. They think healing should feel better than this. But nobody told them that healing often feels like controlled demolition at first. So much can come up. The fact that framework is an intricate part of this process is really something we can't overlook. Because when we haven't been given the framework for what to expect, when you start saying yes to feeling what you've been avoiding, it can be a flush of experience that can feel very overwhelming. This work, this sacred practice of coming home to ourselves, it's not what you think it is. It's messier, more patient, and infinitely more compassionate than our culture would have us believe. So let's talk about the framework, about what you need to know before you go deeper into this work of staying close to the way you were made. I'm going to offer you these 5 essential truths that you can carry with you as you step into this journey. I feel that without these, you might find yourself trying to force healing the same way you've been forced everything else in your life. And that is the very pattern we are here to try to transform. So, the first essential truth is emotional overwhelm is information. It's not an emergency. So, when intense feelings surface, and they will, your first instinct might be to panic, to think that something has gone terribly wrong. But here's what I've learned: emotional overwhelm is information, not an emergency. When that wave of grief hits you in the grocery store, when anxiety floods your system during a perfectly normal Tuesday morning, when anger rises so fast it takes your breath away. This doesn't mean you're broken. It means something is being revealed. Your nervous system, your beautiful, protective nervous system, is finally safe enough to show you what it's been carrying. These emotions aren't invaders, they're messengers. They've been waiting patiently in your body, sometimes for years, for the right moment to be witnessed and held. The emergency isn't the feeling itself, it's the story we tell ourselves about the feeling. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be over this by now. Strong people don't fall apart. But what if falling apart is actually falling back together? The second essential truth: you get to go at your own pace. Let me say this louder for the people in the back. Healing isn't a race. There's no timeline you have to meet, no progress markers you have to hit, no certification of completion waiting at the end. This isn't a productivity challenge. It's a homecoming. Some days you'll surprise yourself with your capacity to stay present with difficult emotions. You'll sit with grief like you're having tea with an old friend. You might even turn on some sad music to encourage that grief to express more. You'll breathe through anxiety with confidence of someone who has learned to trust their own resilience. And on those days, you'll need to step back. You'll need to tend to yourself as gently as you would a frightened child. You'll need quiet moments and gentle rhythms, or purposeful distractions, and the radical act of doing absolutely nothing productive. All of this is valid. All of this is necessary. And all of this is part of the spiral path that true healing follows. The third essential truth is your protective patterns don't disappear overnight, and they shouldn't. Here's something your inner perfectionist probably doesn't want to hear. Your protective patterns, the people-pleasing, the controlling, the hypervigilance, the walls you've built, they don't disappear overnight. And honestly, they shouldn't. Think of these patterns like scaffolding around a building under renovation. You need some of that structure to remain intact while you're doing the deeper work. If you tear down all your defenses at once, you're left vulnerable in ways that neither feel safe or sustainable. So be patient with those parts of you that still need to control every outcome. This was a big one for me because letting go of control felt like I was free falling. So be gentle with the inner people pleaser who's terrified of disappointing anyone. Have compassion for the protector who's been working overtime to keep you safe. These parts of you aren't obstacles to your healing, they're participants in it. They need to be acknowledged, thanked, and slowly and gradually given permission to rest. The fourth essential truth is you need people for this. Here's something I wish someone had told me early on. Something that goes against everything we've been taught about being strong and independent. This work isn't meant to be done alone. Community and support aren't luxuries you add once you've got your life together. They're the foundation that makes the work possible in the first place. Whether it's therapy, trusted friends who can hold space for your mess, support groups where you can drop the mask, or spiritual communities that remind you you're part of something larger. You need witnesses and companions for this journey. It will comfort you, it will sustain you, and most of all, you are deserving of this love. Your healing happens in relationships. Your growth happens in community. Your becoming happens when you're seen and held by people who love you, not despite your struggles, but because of your beautiful, brave humanity. The fifth essential truth is sometimes the most healing thing you can do is pause. And now, the one I find most crucial, the one that might feel radical in our culture of push through and do the work. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is pause. Sometimes the most aligned action is to say, I see this pattern. I understand this wound, and I'm not ready to work with it directly right now. That's not avoidance. That's discernment. Honoring where you actually are instead of where you think you should be. Maybe you're navigating a major life transition. Maybe you're caring for an aging parent, pouring yourself out in service of someone you love. Maybe you're in the thick of a relationship challenge that requires all your emotional bandwidth. Maybe you're simply surviving a particularly difficult season, and survival itself is the victory. In these moments, the most compassionate thing you can do is acknowledge your limits. To say, this healing work will be here when I'm ready. The beautiful thing about emotional healing is that it doesn't have an expiration date. Your original wounds, your protective patterns, your journey back to yourself, they'll be there when you're ready. They're not going anywhere. What changes is your capacity. What changes is your support system. What changes is your life circumstances. And there will come a time when you have more spaciousness, more resources, more energy to turn toward the healing that calls you. So, what does this mean for staying close to the way you were made? It means that sometimes staying close includes honoring your limits. It means that sometimes the most authentic thing you can do is acknowledge that you're not ready for the full journey yet. But here's what you can do right now, no matter what your capacity is. You can notice. You can begin to see your patterns without immediately trying to change them. You can start to recognize when you're abandoning yourself, even if you're not ready to stop doing it yet. You can practice small moments of authenticity. Maybe you can't overhaul your whole life right now, but you can choose the tea you actually want instead of the one you think you should want. You can let yourself feel tired instead of pushing through. You can say, I don't know, when you don't know. You can cultivate gentleness with yourself. Instead of criticizing the ways you're still protecting yourself, you can thank those parts of you for trying to keep you safe. And you can plant seeds. You can start reading books about healing. You can begin to notice patterns. You can start conversations with trusted people. You can begin therapy or counseling when you're ready. You can create the conditions that will support deeper work when the time is right. This is what it means to stay close to the way you were made, not to force yourself into someone else's timeline or someone else's version of strength, but to honor your own rhythm, your own capacity, your own imperfect journey home to yourself. The framework isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up for yourself with the same tenderness you'd offer a beloved friend. It's about trusting that you have everything you need for this moment, even if this moment feels impossibly difficult. This is the end of this season of Stay Close, but it's not the end of our journey. If anything, we've just laid the groundwork for what's possible. Some of you are ready to go deeper. You have the support, the capacity, the resources to begin the intensive work of healing your original wound and transforming your protective patterns. If that's you, trust the readiness, follow it. Some of you need more time. You need to build your support system, create more stability in your life, or simply rest into the awareness you've cultivated. If that's you, honor that timing. There's no rush. And some of you are somewhere in between, ready for some aspect of this work, but not others. Able to handle some emotional territory, but not all of it. If that's you, practice discernment. Take what serves you, leave the rest for later. If you're feeling ready to go deeper, I have resources to support you. You can explore my offerings at sarahbrassard.com, where you'll find ways to work with me more intimately in this healing journey. And if you're looking for gentle practices to help you stay present with yourself, I have free Yoga Nidra meditations on my YouTube channel. Just search Sarah Brassard. These guided rest practices can be especially helpful when you need the gentle tending to we discussed today. What I want you to remember is this: staying close to the way you were made is not a destination, It's a practice. It's a returning again and again to what's true for you in this moment. Some moments you'll be able to stay very close. You'll feel aligned, authentic, and connected to yourself and others. At other times, you'll find yourself in old patterns, protecting and defending and performing. Both are part of the human experience. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is compassion. The goal is the gradual, gentle return to yourself. Before we close, I want to acknowledge something. If you've listened to all 8 episodes of this season, you've done something brave. You've been willing to look at parts of your story that aren't easy to examine. You've considered the possibility that the way you've been protecting yourself might not be serving you anymore. You've entertained the radical idea that you might be worth staying close to. That takes courage. That takes love. That takes a willingness to believe that your authentic self, not the version you think you should be, but the version you actually are, is worth fighting for. Some of you will take this work deeper. Some of you will let it simmer. Some of you will return to these ideas months or years from now when you're in a different place in your life. All of these responses are genuine and truthful. What matters is that you've started. What matters is that you've begun the conversation with yourself about who you really are underneath all the protective strategies. Your original wound doesn't define you, but understanding it can free you. Your protective patterns aren't your enemy, but outgrowing them can transform you. And staying close to the way you were made isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. As you continue on this path, carry these truths with you. Let them be your compass when the way forward feels unclear. And remember, the goal isn't to arrive somewhere different. The goal is to come home to who you are, who you've always been, beneath all the protecting and performing and pushing through. You are already whole. You are already enough. And you are worthy of a healing journey that honors every part of your story, even the parts that aren't ready yet to be rewritten. Thank you for trusting me with your time, your attention, and your tender hearts. Thank you for doing this work of becoming more yourself in a world that often asks you to become someone else. Until we meet again, in whatever form that takes, keep staying close. Keep returning to yourself. Keep believing that who you are is enough. This is Sarah Brassard, and this has been Stay Close.
The sensual toe tapping up your street. It's thorn